Okay, D-Gens, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to explore another interesting and tough decision in PLO hand. We're looking at top two pair facing a full pot size bet. Let's start from the beginning and figure out how we ended up here. Okay, so we've arrived at the first decision point of the hand. Playing 5, 10, 25 here. The action is on us on the button with ace, king, queen, 8. I think it's a relatively clear call. There's one limper under the gun, and there is a raise to less than pot. And with us, I think we can call. Just, it's unlikely we get squeezed here, just kind of how these players have been playing most of the session. And we do run the risk of maybe the undergun player who limped to do a back 3-bet, but given the fact that we have ace, king, queen, seems a little less likely that he has aces and would choose to do that action, especially with 5,000 effective. He wouldn't really be able to get that much money in, and he'd be inflating the pot without really a hand that can go to showdown. Okay, so I agree with the decision to call here. Let's continue. He bets out 250 into a pot of 400. And, let's take into consideration he's betting into 4 players here. So this usually represents some type of strength or, a hand he's ready to play a pot with. But with top 2 pair, the ace of spades is our backup here to bluff, potentially if a spade comes. I think this is a pretty clear call.
Very big hand.
Okay, now we've arrived at the decision point from the beginning of the hand. So the flop aggressor, Yak, follows up here on a turn, 7 of clubs, so bringing in a second flush draw, and he bets full pot. So the action's on us with top 2 pair, ace of spades and queen of clubs. So what should we do here? So let's think about it. When the player... Let's start at the beginning of the hand, right? So Yak was the under the gun raiser, or the under the gun player who limped called pre-flop. On the board of ace queen 3, he bet out 250 into a pot of 400. And now on the blinks 7 comes in, bringing in another flush draw. He then goes for full pot. So by betting full pot here, the hands that he's saying he has for value are aces or queens. I guess sometimes 3s and then sometimes ace queen as well. I think you can highly discredit pocket 3s, just given the fact that pocket 3s typically don't want to play a big pot out of position, because if a lot of money goes in, your best case scenario is top 2 pair, which in this scenario Peter does have top 2 pair, so that would be a win. But in general, people tend to play lower pocket pairs passive, especially when you have an ace and queen on the board, because those are hands that players are likely to play. And you have to think this pot started 5 ways. Pocket aces seem unlikely, just given that he limp called pre-flop from under the gun. Usually with pocket aces, you would like to get a raise or squeeze in at some point in the hand. So given that didn't happen, I feel like we can confidently rule out pocket aces. So the next value hand to consider here is pocket queens. And I think pocket queens is really the hand that, from a value hand that has ace queen beat, queens would be the hand that would most scare me. However, we have ace queen. So it makes pocket queens less likely as well. So then what hands would be doing this that don't contain those hands, right? Maybe we're up against ace queen as well with a flush draw. Maybe you're up against an ace and a wrap, ace, flush draw, double flush draw. There seems like there could be a lot of hands that you're up against, and having ace queen top 2 pair with no straight or no flush there yet, I think it's a relatively clear call. And also, if a spade comes, you're sitting relatively deep in position, so that that's a card that you could bluff. And if a club comes, you could also consider bluffing that too, with the queen of clubs in your hands. So let's see what Peter decides to do. Wow, it looks like he folded. Okay, by folding that, Peter pretty much is saying that he thinks that Yak either has the same hand that he has, and he is getting free rolled with one card to come, or he thinks he has him beat with pocket queens, most likely being the only hand that would make sense. Maybe pocket threes. Let's see what Yak had here.
Peter is going to fold. X's monster. Was a big turn card.
Okay, so Yak had the King Jack 10. So he had the wrap and turn King High clubs. So that would make sense of why he'd want a pot there to maximize his fold equity. So I think this is a well played hand by Yak. From Peter's perspective, and a lesson here to be learned, I think, is top two pairs just too good of a hand to be folding, right? For you to be folding this hand, you'd have to be saying that your opponent isn't capable of bluffing. And as we see here, Yak is capable of bluffing, or at least turning a big draw into a bluff. So by folding, it's relatively disrespectful in the sense that you just think your opponent's not capable of ever bluffing. I can understand the thought process for, best case scenario, you're up against his hand, but, I think you just have to put the money in. And then implications of, putting this on tape or seeing folds like this, if you're ever in a pot against Peter, just pot, make him make a decision, right? You see he's willing to fold a hand as strong as top two pair here, especially when he has a hand that he can easily turn into a bluff if a spade or a club comes in. So I think this is a little bit too passive. It's a little bit disrespectful to the other player in the sense of saying he can never bluff here. And yeah, so I think we could do better. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back with another hand review. Thank you. Please let me know what you would have done.